If you've ever wondered whether compost can do more than improve soil, the old farmers already knew the answer. Long before electricity and propane stoves, families relied on a method so clever and efficient that it served two purposes at once: improving soil fertility, while slow-cooking meals with nothing but trapped compost heat. It's called the hay box method, and while it may sound like a relic of the past, the logic behind it is so practical and energy-saving that any serious gardener can appreciate how it worked, and how we can adapt pieces of it today. The entire system revolves around passive insulation. Instead of adding heat, removing heat, or monitoring fuel, the hay box captured warmth that was already present. In composting, heat is one of the most valuable natural byproducts we have. In cooking, heat is one of the most expensive inputs. The hay box bridged those two realities long before modern efficiency was a concept. At its heart, composting is a controlled heat event. When nitrogen-rich materials like food scraps or manure are mixed with carbon-rich materials like hay, leaves, or straw, microbes activate and begin breaking everything down. That biological activity produces internal temperatures that can reach 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit if conditions are right. Most gardeners think of compost heat as nothing more than a sign that decomposition is on track. But to older generations, that heat was a resource. If you could trap that warmth instead of letting it escape into the surrounding air, you could turn a compost pile into an insulated energy source. That is exactly what the hay box accomplished. The hay itself, or any loose, dry organic material like straw, wool scraps, dried leaves, or sawdust, acts as an insulator. The microbes inside the compost generate the heat, and the surrounding box holds it in place. When done correctly, temperatures remain stable for hours at a time without additional fuel. Even more importantly for gardeners, this insulation stabilizes the composting process. The outer layers don't cool off as quickly. The pile maintains a consistent temperature, microbes stay active longer, and decomposition becomes more efficient overall. You get hotter, steadier compost with less turning and far fewer cold pockets. This is why early farmers considered hay boxes an efficiency tool, not just a culinary trick. Traditional hay box cooking was surprisingly simple. A pot of food was brought to a boil over a fire, placed immediately into a nest of hay or straw inside a wooden box or barrel, and completely surrounded with more insulation. The lid closed tightly, trapping the heat inside. The pot continued cooking for hours using only its retained thermal energy. Now here's where the compost integration came in. In many rural regions, instead of using plain insulation, farmers placed the pot inside or alongside an actively heating compost chamber that had been reinforced with hay. The compost provided constant low-grade warmth, and the hay held it around the pot. This allowed rice, beans, vegetables, grains, stews, and even dairy curds to gently cook or pasteurize without fuel. It was the original slow cooker, powered entirely by decomposition. The key to their success was understanding how long compost stayed hot. A composting mass with the right ratio, about 2 parts hay or straw to 1 part nitrogen material, can hold temperatures above 130 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 to 24 hours when insulated properly. That's more than enough to finish cooking most staple foods. For gardeners and homesteaders, this system saved firewood and coal, reduced smoke inside the home, and made full use of natural processes already happening on the land. The beauty of the hay box system is that nothing is wasted, not the heat, not the insulation, and not the effort. Once the cooking was finished, the hay surrounding the pot was no longer clean. It was slightly warm, lightly compacted, and often damp from steam. That made it perfect carbon material for layering back into the compost pile. The very act of cooking enriched the compost. Over time, all the insulation materials, hay, leaves, wool scraps, became part of the pile. The compost finished with a finer texture, deeper microbial activity, and greater overall volume. Soil fertility increased season after season, simply because nothing in the process was discarded. That is where the historical genius truly shows. Instead of dividing cooking, heating, and soil management into separate chores, everything fed into a single cycle. Heat cooked the food. The act of cooking improved the compost. The compost improved the soil. The soil produced more food. And round the cycle went. Most modern gardeners won't hide a stew pot inside their compost pile, and that's fine. The value of revisiting the hay box method isn't about turning compost into a kitchen appliance. It's about understanding what the technique teaches us about efficiency and soil health. You can apply the principles in a few practical ways. First, using hay or straw as an insulator around your compost keeps temperatures higher and cuts down on turning. If you have trouble keeping a small pile hot, wrap it in a thick layer of hay or leaves. Second, you can accelerate small space compost by creating a layered compost chamber insulated with straw inside a bin, basket, or tote. Even in narrow spaces, insulation improves the breakdown speed dramatically. Third, you can use hay insulation to pasteurize liquids for the garden, compost teas, manure teas, or weed ferment solutions, by placing warm containers into an insulated hay-lined box. Maintaining a steady warm temperature improves microbial development without relying on electricity. Fourth, any gardener trying to produce high-quality humus quickly should consider a semi-insulated system based on haybox logic. Heat retention means faster decay and darker, richer, finished compost. The old method might not be recreated exactly as our great-grandparents practiced it, but the underlying knowledge is still incredibly relevant. Insulated compost stays hotter, breaks down faster, and performs better in the garden. The same principles apply whether you're managing a farm-sized pile or working from a suburban patio bin. If you value practical gardening history and want methods that genuinely work, not just trendy ideas, make sure to subscribe, share this with a fellow gardener, and keep this traditional knowledge alive.